This is where I'd put it.
Proxima Midnight Tier 3.
If I had one! Sorry, lost the happy, but the happy's back!
So yeah, I can't take Proxima to Tier 3. Don't you miss the days when CCF used to be the bottleneck for getting new Tier 3 characters? Now you have all these other Tier 3 materials holding us back. So yeah, that Proxima video will have to wait. Though I'll definitely be making it as soon as I get enough materials. Just, be a little patient. However, this might beg the question of what exactly happened to my Tier 3 materials. Well, that's kind of down to my own irresponsible decision making combined with my desire to make content. The materials basically got flushed away in the creation of this video. I didn't know it when recording the footage for this video. I didn't know how much it would hold me back, but I made a huge sacrifice in the form of my Tier 3 materials in order for this video to come to life. So I really hope that whoever's watching this video can appreciate that fact. If at least one person out there can appreciate the noble sacrifice I've made, then it'll all be worth it. Of course, it'd be nice if anyone watching could, leave a like on the video, maybe subscribe while you're at it. I try my best to make good MFF content. I don't know, I can't tell you what to do, it's just a suggestion, But anyway, enough about my Tier 3 material struggles. Let's get into talking about what you probably clicked on this video to find out. The value of upgrading native Tier 3 gears. Native Tier 3 characters are notoriously expensive, and a big reason as to why they're so costly comes down to their gears, which require a number of all the Tier 3 materials to upgrade, as well as a healthy amount of gold. This kind of begs the question of how much value there is to upgrade these gears, how much it costs to do so, and if it's worth it in the end. So we're basically going to be doing this testing on this null that I have, which has all gears at level 20 and is at level 70. So I'm showing off the stats that I have right now. I haven't tried to cap them at all. This is basically what you get as a level 70 gear 20 null. And I'm just trying to showcase it here. You can see there's a lot of gaps in this build. There's a very low crit rate, very low crit damage. The cooldown is capped, because of my cards. But yeah, ignore defense is also quite low, as you can see. Because upgrading the gears will also affect the values of these stats. So I'm going to be doing a comparison, of course, between level 20 gears and level 25 gears stats. So yeah, I'm just showing it off here. There's no Uru on this guy. This is a very bare bones null build. So it's really just the gears. I haven't done that much to build this character. As you can see, we're also rocking a Power of Angry Hulk ISO 8 set, which can be better, of course. We also have a 140 proc here. Basically just a 140 proc, guard break immunity, cold resist. They don't really do much for his damage. So yeah, this is the null build that we got. And the only thing that'll change between the tests are his gear levels. So I'm going to be testing him at gear 20. And then I'm going to take him to gear 25 and see how much better he does there. So without further ado, let's get to seeing how well Null can do with all gears at 20. So the type of testing I'll be doing here is a little different from my previous video. So instead of just seeing how fast a character can go, I wanted to go through 3 rotations with the character to see how much damage they dealt, to kind of look at the bar, see how much they moved and all that. And I'm going to be comparing his performance in stage 1, 3, and 5 of World Boss Legend Null to his performance on the same stages with his gears upgraded. So as you can see over here, I've listed the rotations that I'm going with. For the first and second rotation, we'll be going with 4 cancel, 5 cancel, 2 with Null. On the third rotation, we're going to be doing 4 cancel, 5 cancel, 6 using his tier 3 skill and proccing on that. Once we do that on all 3 stages, the test is basically done for the World Boss Legend portion. I also decided to test Null in ABX because I thought it would be interesting to see the difference in scores between upgrading the gears. I took him into the no restriction day of ABX and gave him 2 pretty good supports. The supports of course stay constant between the tests, again the only difference being the gears. We'll get into the results later on at the end of the video. So we get into the gear upgrading portion of the video, which is probably the most interesting part. We start around with 4,000 CCF, 6,000 EOD, and 3,000 TCP, around that mark. I'll go into the more in-depth calculations later on. But yeah, this is what I did immediately after recording the Gear 20 footage that I did. So we say goodbye to Gear 20 Null, and goodbye to a lot of resources and materials also. Note that I also started with around 74 million gold, I think. So yeah, again, I'm going to be displaying the full costs of upgrading his gears later on. So don't feel like you have to calculate, but if you don't trust my calculations, I guess, yeah, sure, hold me accountable. But yeah, so that's the first and the fourth gear done. Oh man, even just watching this back is quite painful to see. I could really use those tier 3 materials right now. But you know what they say, no point in crying over spilled milk. I can do nothing but cry as I watch past me upgrade these gears. And we'll get into why I'm crying later on as well. So yeah, 3 gears done, just the 1 gear left. And our resources are just going bye-bye, basically. Alright, note that the costs for upgrading gears from 20 to 25 won't be the same for all players. You could, of course, get it cheaper than I did. You could get it more expensive than I did. That's the thing. It's random. It sucks, but this is how MFF designed their game. So now we have all of Null's gears at 25. What do we notice? So the first thing you want to look at over here is the stats on Null's page now that he's on gear 25. You can see that some of the stats have increased from gear 20 to gear 25, which is of course natural given that the value of stats increase with, you know, the gear increases. They're rather incremental and there's quite a few of them, so I'm not going to go into the specifics, but you can see the differences right here. I just need people to understand that this is the new build that we're going to be rocking basically for the gear 25 tests. We're also going to be having a look at the materials that I have left, or rather the lack thereof. And as you can see, these are the values of the materials that we have. I did do the calculations based on how much I had before and how much I have now. I'm going to be showing them right here, so you can see the exact amount that I spent to upgrade all of Null's gears from 20 to 25. Now, I must reiterate, this isn't a fixed cost. This isn't the exact cost that everyone's going to spend if they upgrade Null's gears from 20 to 25. There's randomness, there's variation, so you could very well spend more than this, or you could also spend less than this. You know, it's really up to chance here, but this is just what I spent. So we have 22 million gold, about 2,600 Essence of Dimension Titan component packs, and 1,100 CCF. So having spent all of that, let's go see what giving up all of these resources get us in the form of, you know, the performance of Null at all gears 25. So we take Null into World Boss, well, Null, to do the same test that we did for him at gear 20. The only difference now, of course, is that he's at gear 25. I'm just showing the footage here so that anyone watching can judge the footage along with me. This is the baseline that we're using when we look at the results later on. Again, similar to the testing when Null was at gear 20, we're going to be going through the 3 rotations. The first 2, which is a simple 4 cancel 5 cancel 2, and the last one, which utilizes his tier 3 skill. So here's Null using his tier 3 skill already, and once that ends, that kind of ends the testing phase for World Boss Legend as well. Let me know if this style of testing is interesting to you, because it's kind of different from what I usually do. But I think it also yields some, you know, interesting results. We'll get into that later. And by later, I mean now. So these are the results that I was able to garner from World Boss Legend testing, the difference between Null at gear 20 and gear 25. So before we get into discussing the results, let's just explain how this little table works. So the start column basically represents how much health the World Boss Legend Null has at the beginning of the fight, which is of course 60, which is why it's 60 for all stages. Then we look at the bars after blank rotation. You basically fill in the blank for there. So for example, bars after first rotation for gear 20 stage 1. After the first rotation, Null was at 54.3 bars. The decimal points are just a rough estimate of where Null was at. It's kind of just, I kind of just use it using my eye test. The values could be interpreted differently possibly by other people. Some might say it's like a 0.4, 0.2, etc. But this is kind of just, you know, me doing my best in that sense. The last box on the right is the damage dealt by blank rotation in bars. So for example, the first rotation of stage 1 gear 20 dealt 5.7 bars of damage. And the second one dealt 4.9 bars of damage, etc, etc. You know, you kind of get it. So you can see from the values on here that the damage values aren't so different. For example, you compare the performance at stage 1. The difference is tiny. The difference of the damage in the first rotation is 0.1 bar. Same with the second rotation. And in fact, on gear 25, the damage of the tier 3 skill actually went down. Now, of course, this isn't me trying to say that Null at gear 25 deals lower damage than at gear 20. Now, that would be absolutely ridiculous. I think there might have just been a bit of a mistiming when it comes to the damage proc. And that's what I would kind of equate a lot of the variation on here too. Because I think the conclusion that I'm arriving at after looking at these results is that Gear 20 to Gear 25 hardly does anything for a World Boss Legend performance. So basically, I spent all of those resources, all that gold, all those tier 3 materials, for nothing. My null isn't gonna hit any harder in World Boss Legend, so that's very, very disappointing, I must say. But of course, this is just the World Boss Legend results. Maybe he does better in ABX, so let's go check those results out. Alright, so I'm going to be showing off both ABX runs here. We have Shuri and Valkyrie as the supports, and we're using Null's lead. So yeah, I will say the thing about ABX that may skew the tests a little bit is the fact that it's a lot harder, I would say, to proc consistently, given that there's so many targets that you can hit, as opposed to just having a single target in something like World Boss Legend. Now, I don't think it skewed the results too much since both runs were kind of affected by, you know, the variations in the damage proc. So yeah, I'm just trying to say that the test is still kind of fair, but you could kind of question it because of the proc consistency over here. So we're trying to do the same rotation as in World Boss Legend. We're trying to do a 4 cancel, 5 cancel, 2. And when we have the tier 3 skill, we try to proc on the tier 3 skill, try to land on it. Now recently, I've been trying to cancel the tier 3 skill and to land a proc on the tier 3 skill combined with a second skill, but none of that is here because that's kind of tricky. It's a little tricky to land the proc exactly on that, and you gotta have a good sense of the timing on your proc in order to make that work. And I didn't want to risk it for a test like this. I'm just trying to say that we're trying to follow very simple rotations, trying to follow the easiest rotations. The fact that we're also trying to silence the beast here also does skew up the proc rotations a bit. I will say that too. That kind of just occurred to me, so that's another factor of variation that you have to take in. I would also like to say that I don't think this run, or these two runs, are fair representations of how well Null performs in APX because my build is just so whack. I mean, I would give him a CTP, but yeah, that's a discussion for another video maybe. But yeah, this shouldn't be a representation of how well Null can do in APX, so don't use that as one of the takeaways from this video. We're just looking at the performance between Gear 20 and Gear 25 Null. And we can see it's very close. You know, both Gear 20 and Gear 25 have kind of edged each other at certain points throughout the runs. But they've always been around the same ballpark, which is interesting because it seems like the results are going to lean toward what I was able to find for the World Boss Legend testing, where it's that the gear upgrades make no difference whatsoever. But let's wait for the runs to finish before we arrive at concrete conclusions. It's not like we'll have to wait that long anyway. Both tests are at that phase where you have to cancel the beast's roar and all that. So we're kind of approaching the end of the runs. Scores are still very close to one another. Bit of a missed proc there on the Gear 20 run. But you know, whatever, they push on. It does seem like the Gear 25 run has pulled ahead significantly here, so that is promising to see. Just a few seconds left for both runs. Should be done any second now. So we hit 4.1 million on the Gear 25 run, and we hit 3.9 million on the Gear 20 run. So you might be tempted to conclude here that the Gear 25 did better than the Gear 20. Of course, 4 million is higher than 3.9 million. But I don't know. To me, I still feel like these results are really, really close. And if you do another set of tests, there could be a run where the Gear 20 outperforms the Gear 25 run. So I believe the conclusion here is still rather similar to the conclusion that we arrived in the World Boss Legend testing, where it's that taking Null from Gear 20 to Gear 25 hardly upgrades him, and if there is an upgrade, it's only very minuscule. It's only a difference of 3.9 and 4.1 million in APX at best, I would say. Now, granted, there was quite a bit of variation with the, the missed procs on these runs, but I feel like this, coupled with the World Boss Legend results, they kind of both paint a similar story, so I think that is the conclusion that these results are trying to tell us. So what is the lesson from these tests? I think the answer is very simple. Don't upgrade native tier 3 gears from gear 20 to gear 25. I think it should be very simple, and I think everyone has already arrived at that conclusion before I even said it. But yeah, these native tier 3 characters are amazing. Null is amazing, one of the best characters in the game, and so are Mephisto and Sentry. And they are these amazing characters at gear 20, and they will still be these amazing characters at gear 25. There's very little to differentiate the value of a gear 20 and a gear 25 native tier 3, if there is any difference at all. And in order to get there, you have to make such a big investment. For me, it was around what you saw a while ago, 20 million gold, 2,600 Essence of Dimension Titan component packs, 1,000 plus CCF. All of those resources could be split among multiple strong characters. I could have tier 3 Proxima by now if I didn't spend those resources to upgrade Null's gears. And what did I get out of it? A Null that hardly performs better than he did at gear 20. So yeah, take my story as a bit of a cautionary tale. I would highly recommend keeping your native tier 3 gears at gear 20. Of course, if you want to spend it just for completionist's sake, then you know what, whatever. By all means, go for it. I feel like that's something I would do also. I think I will take Mephisto's gears from gear 20 to gear 25 just because I like to have things complete. But I'll do that once I can build up my tier 3 material collection once again, because it's looking rather dry right now. So yeah, have you upgraded native tier 3 gears before? Do you regret it? Did this video maybe help make you reconsider upgrading a native tier 3's gears? Do let me know in the comment section. I would love to hear what you think. I hope that this video was helpful, taught you something about native tier 3 gears and all that, and why they're a huge ripoff. And as always, thank you so much for watching.